Big changes happening at Blizzard. As we covered in a previous video last week, there has been a pretty big shakeup, and we're going to cover some of the questions and comments that we got on that video, as well as Obsidian has some news updates as well to add on to everything that's happening. My name is Ash for the Triple S League, and I am here, as always, with Obsidian, and we're going to dive a little deeper into what's going on with Blizzard, because there were a lot of questions, there was some skepticism, there is some curiosity about what we should really expect from these changes that are happening. But first, you had some updates you wanted to share, so go ahead, Seb.
Yes, and again, I am still recovering. I thank you for all the people who asked me how I'm doing. Still recovering, so please forgive me if I'm not 100%. I'm still pretty ill and still working way too much.
It's all right. I mean, it happens.
Doing this.
Life is still happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have some updates. We've got some cool stuff. So some people were asking sources. It's I don't give sources because you don't give sources that give you info that sometimes may not necessarily want to be shared. The question about the split from Activision and Blizzard, they're obviously both owned by Microsoft, but why is Microsoft no longer going through Activision and Bobby Kotick? Why are they not going through them anymore to get out this kind of to do what they're doing, to make what they're making? Why is that? Well, it's kind of an obvious thing. At very few studios that Microsoft has bought out, have they come in and said, all right, guys, we want you to talk to 3 other levels of people. He's saying this to the head of the studio. Hey, I want you to talk to this dude and this dude and this dude. Todd Howard doesn't go through ZeniMax, former ZeniMax employees, to talk to Phil. He just calls them directly. That's been the MO of how Phil has been working with all these new studio acquisitions. And in some cases, and in the case of Redfall, there was something clearly missed. In the case of Starfield, I suppose some people would argue that something was missed, but Starfield, despite not being an amazing, absolute thumper of a game, it still is being played by an enormous amount of people. And lots of people are playing it on Xbox. And that's the whole reason why they want it there. Obviously, Starfield has probably honestly has 4 more years of DLCs and expansions to be added to it to make it as good as what we look at when we look back at Fallout or when we look back at Skyrim. It's we have, a vivid imagination of what was there. And I think that if a lot of people play the vanilla versions of those things, they kind of go, wow, there's not a lot of great stuff going on here. So that's fine. But that's how Phil works. So it was no surprise to me that this happened, despite what I said.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, that's kind of been Xbox's MO. And you're talking about Phil Spencer, CEO of Microsoft Gaming. If anyone's not familiar with who Side means when he says Phil Spencer, he's also the head of the Xbox brand at Microsoft, and their approach with all the studios they bought, and they've bought a whole bunch of them recently, and by recently I mean over the past several years, but they have had an approach of, direct control, but also giving those studios a lot of freedom in what they do and what they create. So I suppose, they've taken that kind of MO and applied it to Blizzard, and I guess cutting out the management level at Activision was a step toward Blizzard operating more efficiently and better in general.
Yeah, I doubt very much that in the current C-suite at Activision, I doubt 90% of those people will be there. March, first quarter in.
Well, Bobby K is. Yeah,
he's out January 1st. But I mean, just just a ton of other people at Activision whose job it is to make everybody else's work life, a living hell. According to
management,
many people. And again, if you've ever worked for a company and that is doesn't work at its best, has a lot of issues, where those issues almost always come from. And they're usually this mid-level management that has no understanding of what's going on. They think that
the people aspiring to be at the top and a little power hungry.
Yeah,
sort of hovering at that middle level.
And I've seen it. I just dealt with this today. Somebody comes in and says, "Hey, we need team, Y to be in this location tomorrow morning." And somebody's like, do they have any conception of what that takes? Like, half the team is on vacation. This was a planned vacation. So like, why, like this doesn't function this way. You just don't call up somebody and say, "Hey, we want everything there tomorrow." It's like that they have equipment to bring. They have all this other stuff to bring. They've got to like get situated. They've got to go through all the security stuff. It's like that alone is like a 3-day planning thing. And then in the same basket, we dealt with another situation where it's like, hey, the planning for this project was like, it was a ludicrous amount of stuff to be done for something that was like an hour.
Well, this also reminds me of when I was working for a very large company in the professional development department, and one day out of the blue, our manager was just left the company, had some personal thing going on, and our department had no manager for I think 3 or 4 months, and everything just went on business as usual. It was kind of funny. I remember commenting on that with my fellow staff members. Like, we all knew what our jobs, we all knew what to do, and we just carried on. Of course, eventually we had to get someone in there to sort of be the point of communication with upper management. But anyway, we could probably gripe about that all day.
About this forever. Basically, the short is so the short of it is that while I was surprised in the sense, like, I wasn't surprised from the MO of how Microsoft runs things right now and how Phil is running things right now. What I was surprised about mostly is that the demonic claws of greed were actually, like, in some way let go.
Well,
and somebody at the top was actually, like, not in charge of this stuff anymore. That's the thing that I was the most surprised about, because I honestly thought, like, I knew that the Activision was going to be, like, kind of more or less separated from them eventually, but the speed at which that happened, and then also the speed at which they were specifically told, don't listen to that guy anymore. You don't have to do anything to that guy. And that guy was sitting, apparently, juicy rumor. Apparently that guy was sitting in a room waiting for the whole like update on like how BlizzCon was going to go. And people just never showed up because they didn't have to
answer to him anymore.
And so nobody showed up to talk to him. And he was quite furious. So
is that guy's name rhyme with
but it's very funny to hear that as rumors. And again, I've heard a lot of Blizzard rumors over the years.
Well, on that topic, we had a lot of questions about what the sources are for this claim. And you said you don't want to name your sources.
Yeah, we don't name sources.
But let me ask you, you said that Phil Spencer had a meeting with people at Blizzard, and Blizzard people told him that they wanted to be out from under Activision's thumb, and that he basically told them right then and there they now answer to him instead of to Activision. So cut out Activision, created a de facto separation of the two companies. I know you don't want to name your sources, but can you tell us who you talked to?
That in particular is very well known.
Okay.
Is extremely well known. Right now it is, so when I first heard it, it was hot off the press. There were very few people who were in the know about that. But then BlizzCon happened and Phil came out, basically said as much. So when you got to BlizzCon, normally it's an Activision Blizzard banner, a massive banner. This thing's like, 20, 30 feet across, 15 feet high, 20 feet high. It's massive, right? It's a huge banner. Normally that banner says Activision Blizzard King. In this case, it did not say that. It said Blizzard Entertainment, which is what they used to go by before the buyout. So they apparently either they had this thing made up, or they dug it out of like storage and hung it there for everybody to see. Now this is in the business world, this is the equivalent to walking in and seeing somebody's head on a spike.
To see different.
This is that equivalent.
Because if you're an Activision dude and you walk in there and see that, you're gonna be like, whoa, whoa, what's going on here? So So you're saying, so all of that is kind of common knowledge now? And
yeah, if you go over all the interviews, so the Preach video, the the Taliesin videos, the S-Fan videos, all of these videos with all of these content creators and more, Linksy did a big long thing. She works for Blizzard. It was stated over and over and over again. It's like they're now with Microsoft. Microsoft is now calling the shots. Mike has more power than ever. They have, oh, good Lord, sorry. they have the ability to do whatever they want to do, and they don't have to answer to anybody in the C-suite at Activision now. Now, as far as how did BlizzCon actually go, there was some functional problems, some functionality problems. This is I don't know who to blame for this. It's a lot of like people doing certain queuing and stuff like that, and I think
you're
we can say
about
that
technical stuff.
Like technical stuff of like how when they were bringing people into the main auditorium versus like how they used to do it in the past, how they arranged post interviews and meet and greets versus how they've done it in the past. There was definitely somebody trying something new and different, but as I understand, it was a little bit more on the long-term planners in conjunction with the events planning, trying to come up with something new. So
yeah, how does that work exactly? Because you've said that BlizzCon 2023 was quite different from previous years, both in the mood and in all the stuff they announced.
in the mood, the functionality, and the presentation.
So how does that? Because these events take a long time to prepare for. So if this meeting between Phil and Blizzard happened only, what was it, a week before or just a couple weeks before?
Basically a week before, yeah.
A week before BlizzCon. How did they in a week?
Oh, sorry, I forgot. Let's just quickly focus in on that. So the meet between Blizzard and Phil, that's not inside information anymore. That was inside information when it first came out, but again, it is one of the many topics that was discussed between people, and people like Taliesin and people like Preach. They were talking specifically about this meeting, and there were several people, big content creators were told basically there was this meeting. Blizzard had gotten everything together to like show Phil and his team to say, this is what we're working on. This is our projected income from this project. This is our projected thing from this thing. This is what we're working on over here. We've got an early alpha of this game that we're playtesting right now. We've got this tech that we're working on, that tech. And they were prepared to like just sit there and like go through it for like 2 or a couple days. But Phil was like, no, I don't want to see that. I just want to talk to you guys to see how you feel and what you think you need. So, and again, that has been talked to death by a lot of other people. And again, there's if you're following, if you're obsessed with watching stuff on this, everybody from Akalon to Preach or I should say Akalon to Tally, because they're on like two very very different ends of that thing. Bellular, they all have known about, and they've all been talking about it. So this is not new. This was new when it first happened. This was very like not many people were like talking about it, but this is also not something that they necessarily wanted to keep a secret. This isn't a secret thing. Like, oh, they had this meeting.
It doesn't seem like it's something. It's not something I'd want to keep a secret if I was Phil or if I was Blizzard, because this is what the fans have been wanting for ages.
Exactly, and the strange thing is if Phil had come out and said, he'd come out and he got into the arena and he's like, everybody, I want you to know, Blizzard only answers to me. They do not answer to anybody from Activision. The whole place would have just gone absolutely bananas. Like, they would have been screaming, but that's considered a little too aggressive.
Yeah, that would have wouldn't have gone over well. It would have been
exactly.
Well, it would have gone over great with the fans, just not.
Oh yeah, it would have gone over great with the fans. There would have been some serious.
Not with the people.
Backroom anger going on.
Yeah,
there.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the effect is the same. And that's why I want to make this clear. I think Diablo Immortal is one of the worst things the gaming has ever made, ever. Period. I think it is terrible. I think the only way that they could have made that game better is if you had like $1 million buy-in to be able to play the game. So then that way, and you had to front it up with cash and you had to do it in like, I don't know, Dubai or something like that. Like literally have people fly in, do all this stuff, and then just have these rich people. That's the only way, in my humble opinion, that should have been allowed to exist as a product, because it's a terrible product. Overwatch is not in a good place at all. They stiffed everybody on creating the PvE content. A lot of people, Max and I, we talk about this when we're doing the podcast. It's a very bad thing, and it's in a very bad place. So I'm not saying it's perfect. Retail, they just came out with a patch that had some very terrible story choices in it, just done super badly. It was cringe as like, if you're a big fan of the Fast and the Furious series, you might have been like, this is cool. But if you're not, if you're actually like, a Tolkien or a C.S. Lewis or a J.R.R. Martin kind of fan, as far as your fantasy comes, you just kind of slapped your forehead and you're like, what in the world is going on here? Why is this? I hate this change. So again, not everything means that, hey, go out and renew every subscription and buy every product Blizzard has. No. Engage with them now. Because now is when the change is going to happen, and the most change is going to take effect for the longest period of time. And you don't have to buy product to engage, but I really encourage everybody to try out Season of Discovery, because honestly, this looks absolutely amazing, and we'll get into that.
Okay, excellent. So speaking of Max, though, be sure to subscribe to this channel, the Triple S League, and catch Maximum News every week with Subsidian, who's on this video with me right now, and also Max Darrett, who hosts Maximum News. The two of them talk about all the gaming news of the week every week. It comes out Tuesdays or Wednesdays, depending when they're able to record. The schedules are a little hard to line up sometimes. In any case, let's get back to some more of the questions and comments we got about the previous video, as well as some stuff that people are curious about. I'm still curious how did they make so many changes in a week? Like, you talked about the giant banner that said Activision Blizzard.
So the giant banner, that's a big.
I have a hard time seeing. I'm leaning more towards they dug it out of storage, because to get that made in less than a week would have been probably. I mean, maybe it's doable. I don't know, but how did they go from meeting with Phil like a week earlier to having such a different show at BlizzCon? And
the different show on the functionality side of things, I don't think that it has. I think that is something that happened more so with the event organizer and the staff at the venue than I don't think it was. I think it was something that I don't think high level people in Blizzard were like planning as far as the functionality of it. So that means like how the rooms were set up. Apparently at some point the fire marshal showed up and there were too many people in one location, and he was like, no, you have to clear out people. That's a safety thing. It's clearly it's very important that you listen to the fire experts, because everything is fine until there's a fire. And then when there's a fire, bad stuff happens. So yeah, there was a very poor designing of some of that kind of stuff, and that is not. I don't think that has anything to do with what we're talking about. I think that was weeks ahead. Various planners, post-COVID stuff is really wonky when you're trying to do big venues. There's still a lot of venue people who retired during the COVID period and were replaced by people who aren't nearly as experienced, who don't quite know things. Yeah. Clearly, somebody was trying to do new things to make security or to make certain staffing choices better, and it just went sideways. Not in a horrendous way, but it didn't hit the mark as far as the functionality of the event went.
Right, but that's less. I'm less talking about that and more talking about all the stuff they announced.
Yeah, so the stuff that they announced, the what they announced, that stuff is kept secret from basically everybody. So there's no that stuff changes on a whim, and it changes very quickly.
Okay.
The so presentations,
it's not crazy.
They have huge problems with leaks. So the big cinematic thing that they put out, I'm being told that other than the cinematic team, who are all under very serious NDAs, who work under a fair bit of scrutiny, not crazy amount, because a lot of them have been there for a very long time. And those guys, the people who do the cinematics, who like actually make those cinematics, not the ones who write the cinematics, and I need to make that clear, not the people who write the cinematics, but the people who make the cinematics at Blizzard, they have been around for a very long time, and they are beautiful, genuine artists who do amazing work. Every one of their big, like, not the in-game cinematics, the movie quality cinematics. Those guys make beautiful art, and they are given scripts to work with, so they do their best with what they have. And in a lot of cases, these things are made years and years and years before. Anyways, the point of this is that the people who are outside of that, I hear it quite regularly that that's literally like 20 or 30 employees. Most people, and that's like all of the C-level people who are involved in that. So that's a very small handful of people who have seen that and know that it's coming out, because every year before, stuff has leaked, and it's not good when leaks happen. And yeah, it's just not good. So they are cracking down on leaks harder than ever. And so this is the kind of stuff that they didn't want coming out. So that's not something, that aspect what you're asking about is like, you know, how do they have the ability to do this? It's like they come out and they talk about stuff off the cuff. And if you watch the interviews, or sorry, not the interviews, the showcases. If you watch the showcases, you can tell that Metzen was rehearsing this like a day or two beforehand. And
right, so it's not polished to the level.
It's not hyper polished. They don't have lighting cues and, you know, stage presentation and music, because that's how you get stuff to the leak. Chris Metzen walked out in a shirt and said, "For the Horde, for the Alliance, do you guys want good stuff? Do you want to go back to when we made good stuff? I am going to give you good stuff. Let me show you the good stuff I'm going to give you." And then he shows like 3 things, and that's it.
Some of those
and he
things,
just talks for the rest of it. So
you had said that before in the Activision days. They would release a lot less, or they'd announce a lot less. And at this time, they announced like the next 3.
Yeah, so normally what happens in the previous expansions. And Legion was good. Legion was genuinely really good. Legion was good. There were some problems here and there, but Legion was good. Legion was what brought me back to the game. BFA came out, huge promise, beautiful cinematics. That made me hopeful. And then that shattered my hope into a million pieces. I stopped playing again. Then Shadowlands came out. And again, the promises, the cinematic, little kind of weird, very hype. Biggest sale of the biggest I think it moved the most products ever in the history of gaming for that initial release for Shadowlands. Everybody was excited about it. 5 minutes into the actual game, it wasn't good, and then it went downhill from there quite quickly, and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And if you weren't logging in every single day to do 3 hours of chores, you felt that you were just getting left behind and you weren't going to be able to catch up and all this stuff. And it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. Dragonflight came out and it was okay. Not good, not great. It was okay. Mm-hmm. And again, like, that's retail for you. But retail is its own beast, and what they've been doing for years, it's just this copy paste. Here's more dungeons. Here's a raid. Here's a general storyline. Here's a bunch of powers, abilities, and things that you're going to do, but then you're going to immediately forget and not do any of them ever again after the expansion goes away. It was that was what has been going on for the last, I would say, like 6-7 expansions. Terrible, horrendous, garbage, like just not good, no evergreen stuff ever. And why? Because some idiot analyst had convinced a lot of people at the top that nobody wanted evergreen stuff. Nobody ever wanted something that stuck around and made a difference, and nobody wanted vanilla.
Right, which is the whole attitude from
exactly.
What was it? Yeah, you think you want that, but you really don't.
Yeah, like, and that's what the previous CEO said.
Don't you guys have
think
phones?
You want that stuff?
Kind of thing.
You don't. Yeah, and that whole mentality, had been there for so long. And one of the things that they could never do, they could never convince anybody, is like, hey, give us like 10 times the budget that you're giving us now, and let us make World of Warcraft, a beautiful, wonderful thing that is just full of innovation and cool stuff. And the answer was always no. The answer was always no, because, and this is one of the news updates, from the perspective of Activision, World of Warcraft was done. It wasn't something to innovate on. It was something to farm money from. So they always, so they gradually cut back the money that they were spending on it. They gradually cut away at people's salaries. They got rid of the people who were making the most money. They kicked out people who were team leads, and they forced other people to quit by making their life a living hell. And they sat around just collecting, and every year it was like, hey, find a way to make more money off these people. Hey, find a way to make these people pay us more money. Hey, find a way to milk these people for every ounce of blood that they have. That was the thing, over and over and over again. But now things are different. A little, like mostly different. And not 100%, but mostly different.
There's a lot of questions about that. Actually, I have quite a few questions about that. So these things that they have announced now for WoW Classic that made everyone go nuts, and everyone was like, yes, this is what we've been asking for years. When they came out and announced that at BlizzCon, is this stuff they had been planning before, like a while back?
So they
just had announced, or are these decisions they made during that week after talking to Phil?
No.
That's my one question.
So these decisions, a lot of these decisions had been keyed up for quite a while, in the sense of like, so the Classic team has been, they've really been carrying numbers recently. Ever since they released Hardcore and Classic, it's really been growing. So the Classic, they did Vanilla, then they did Burning Crusade, then they did Wrath. Wrath was by far the height of the game for a long time. So that height, getting that back in, getting everybody interested in that, getting everybody just living that out and being enjoying that the most, that's been huge. But the real surprise came with Classic Hardcore. So going back to Vanilla, staying in Vanilla, you now have this Hardcore experience where if you die, you die. That's it. You go back to the graveyard and you roll a new character. That, to most people, is like insane. But turns out it's one of the most successful things that WoW has ever done at all. First, it started out as a community thing, and now it's grown to this thing where hundreds of streamers are all in a guild together, playing through the game, trying to get up to the point where they can raid, and probably all end up dying on the first raid. On characters that are, you die, you're dead. That's 30 days of your life gone, just in an instant. Now it's not gone, but because they stay ghosts, and if you transfer them to an old server, you can get it back. But that's an old server, that's an era server where that hardcore rules don't apply there. And so, but it's this challenge of like, can you survive leveling a character from 1 to 60 without dying? Then do dungeons, get equipped, get geared, and then do raids and not die. And that is not an easy challenge. That is not an easy challenge at all. First, you've got you still have the disconnection issues that happen every once in a while. And if you disconnect in a wrong place, if you jump into a pool of lava, you're dead. You're toast. There's nothing you can do about it. You're gone. Oh my goodness, what a waste. And there are people who die to the most ridiculous things. One of the most common ways of dying in the game is, and the puppies agree with this, falling. So people all the time in 3 of the zones, there's like in Thunderbluff, you walk off the wrong side of a thing, you fall to your death. In Undercity, you go onto an elevator, and if you don't get onto that elevator the right way, if you jump at the wrong moment, you're also dead. And Ironforge, if you accidentally jump into the lava, you're dead.
It does not surprise me at all.
In Stormwind, you accidentally jump into the water and the sewer beast is there. He comes over and eats you. You're dead. This is like, and that's the cities. That's the safe zones. And people die in the cities all the time.
And people love watching streamers do that kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
it's not at all surprising to me.
The hardcore death recap videos are like, they're getting millions of views nonstop. Because they're hilarious. They're amazing. There's close calls where it's like, is the guy going to live? Is he going to die? What's going to happen? And people are eating this up. Every streamer of every type, and I literally mean every type. Pokemon, for crying out loud. Pokemon. I believe it was Pokimane, whatever her name is.
Pokimane?
She's playing this. The girl, the whale girl. Now, she's a big WoW nerd. She loves WoW for a long time. But she's doing this. She's not doing this. She's talking about it like every day on her stream. There's tons of extra. Emily, who's never played MMOs before, she's doing this. There's streamers who stream on YouTube, not just Twitch, on YouTube. Some Asian guy, big streamer. I can't remember his name. Apologies. There's been so many names I've been trying to learn. He's been streaming this to great success, and it's just out of nowhere. This has really fueled it, and so that's been fueling this side. But with the freedom to like do more than what they wanted for a very long time now, that team is starting to realize that, hey, we can really just go nuts with this stuff. We have to be a little careful, but we can really go nuts with it. And that's what Season of Discovery is them going nuts and being able to say, hey, let's just go crazy. Let's just do it. Let's just do something insane that people have been asking about for a long time. It's a lot of stuff they're throwing. A lot of people think they're throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, to see what's popular, and then they'll kind of take that and evolve that down the road some more. And it's like, that's very exciting. It could be that SOD just ends up becoming its own permanent thing and is the actual Classic Plus that people have been asking for. Could be a couple different things that they can go with it, but that's been something that's been growing over the last like 6 months, and I think a lot of that stems from the knowing that Blizzard was going to be bought out, that Microsoft was going to get that going. And I'd say that's like four months ago that we knew for sure 100% it was a done deal, baby. At that point, that's when a lot of people started to change. There were some people who started to slack off and do nothing because they're like, what's the point? Microsoft's going to come in and they're going to restructure everything. I'm probably going to get fired no matter what I do. It's a very doomerism stuff. I was even like that. I was like, there's nothing going to be done. But then to my shock, I was like, oh, no, they are doing stuff. They are making a change. And again, there's some people, some bad eggs in the company still. There's still bad eggs in the company. I can't emphasize that enough. But there's going to be an opportunity for those people to be replaced by better people who understand what gamers actually want.
Well, that sounds like there's some fantastic changes coming, but what certainty can we have, if any, that things are going to get better, even without Activision meddling with Blizzard's development? We've seen key staff members at Blizzard leave over the past few years. We've seen tons and tons of layoffs. Considering, all of the, the departure of so much talent and so many, I'm sure not all of them were their A staff, but is it really possible for Blizzard to recover at this point? Or recapture kind of what it used to have, the magic that it held for people, the fans of their IPs and all of that?
I think so. I really do. I really do think so, because it's a thing where it's like, WoW makes a lot of money, like a lot of money. In a lot of cases, the two biggest things that like Activision Blizzard King they had Candy Crush that takes advantage of people. They had COD and they had and they had WoW. Those were the big money makers. There was entire games that were created, made, and then released that made less money than a single cosmetic piece released in World of Warcraft. So when you are dealing with numbers like that, when you're dealing with something as big as that, there is a lot of different, there's clearly, if you're smart, you go, wow, people really love this thing. Let's see how much we can foster this. You gotta remember, World of Warcraft was one of the most played games ever in the past. But why isn't it anymore? Well, probably because a lot of the bad decisions that they made. That's for one. Mm-hmm. The lack of community, all this kind of stuff. So is there a guarantee that they're going to go back to that? No, there's no guarantee of that. In a lot of ways, you can say that Microsoft will probably end up killing the IP. How long will that take? Who knows? Will they for sure? I don't know. It really depends on what happens with the community, because that's really where community changes, is how many people get involved, how many people make their voices heard, and how much stuff is done to make something good. You'd be a fool to think that you couldn't take a Blizzard story, get a really good animation team behind it, and do better than Arcane. There's no reason why that can't happen. They constantly screw this up when they try and bring in Hollywood concepts, Hollywood ideals, Hollywood storytelling. People aren't interested in that. People don't want that.
Well, Hollywood is the Activision of the movie business. But anyway.
Yeah, and it's terrible. The Warcraft movie, the one that they did, like visually it was like kind of like weird and poor. Like it looked okay-ish, but it was just the way that they did it. It just was kind of garbage. And and the storyline didn't make sense. They really didn't follow things properly. They were just kind of all over the place as far as the lore went. And yeah, it's because they got a bunch of people in who had no idea what they were doing, working with a script that was just terrible from the get-go. It's like if they had done a story properly that was at the level of Arcane, again, there's no reason why they couldn't be better than Arcane. And we've seen this with how many stuff. We're going to see this, fingers crossed, with the new Fallout show. We're going to see this. It's going to be great, guys. I'm not huffing copium at all. It's going to be great. Please let it be good. It has
the potential to be, for sure.
Right, right.
We've seen,
but that's the thing. It's like the potential.
We've seen with, like we saw with the Last of Us TV show, and like we saw with more recently, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, when that potential is there when you get the right people in place to do it, and they don't just, Hollywood doesn't come in and Hollywood over everything. Now, I mean, obviously these were Hollywood productions, but that's a very big umbrella term. But just in general, they like, I say that Hollywood is like Activision in that it's about turning on that money spigot. Just grind out whatever crap you can to keep the money
Bobby
flowing.
Kotick invented didn't invent, but he brought in the concept of MVP into the video game space. What is MVP? Most valuable person? No, they don't value you as a person. They value your wallet. MVP means minimal viable product. That was what Activision brought to Blizzard. And that is what they made them put out for the longest time.
That sounds great, right? Like, what are you going to... Hey, okay, great. Activision, you're a game company. What are you going to give us? Oh, we're working to create the minimum viable product for you.
Yeah.
Okay,
absolute garbage.
It's nonsense.
Just vile people. And artists can't thrive when you're trying to tell them, create the minimal viable product. We don't care. We don't care about your designs, your concepts, your ideas, but it's not like that stuff's not financially viable. It's like Warcraft was super viable. I mean, these companies were built on the viability of artists doing their thing, of creating something beautiful and selling it to you for a one-time charge. That was what gaming was built on. And then these disgusting, vile people have come in the last few years where they say, no. We don't want you to make art. We don't want you to make something that you're going to be proud of. We want you to make something that has been made with the least amount of effort to scrape off of these people the most amount of money. And we don't care about the quality. So long as people eat it, we're going to shovel it into their mouth. And there is a lot of gaming that persists to this day, of course, naturally. That is the thing. I wish so hard that Larian Studios would have made 1,000 times more than what it made, because that is the only way this kind of stuff is going to stop. This kind of insane stupidity of like, hey, there's this cheap knockoff game that we've made. It's just an asset flip. We're going to make some trailers, put them on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. And what it's going to show is it's going to show not what the actual game is. It's going to show this funny little thing that makes you click it and makes you get into it. And then it's just going to be this thing that tries to sell you and pressure you, do high pressure sales tactics constantly at you until you give up. And then you're going to go on Twitter and you're going to see the next thing. The next product made by the same people, the same vile people. And it's the same ripped off, asset flip garbage, lying to you about, hey, you get to play this dude climbing this tower. You add the numbers together and it's great. It's funny. And instead of making that as an actual product, because that's not the actual product, that's less than 15% of the game. The other 85% of the game is just this high pressure constant sales tactic of click the button. Now, you can't click the button until you spend $1.53. Come on, it's only $1.53. Click the button. It's $1.53. That kind of stuff is garbage. And of course, you get mounts, you get crappy cosmetics. Those things are a problem too. And so again, there's the gaming industry is in a hell of a position. And anytime we see positivity and moving kind of away from that stuff, we should praise that company. We should all be on Twitter, X, or whatever we call it these days. We should all be on whatever social media once a week saying, thank you, Larian. This is the greatest game that has been made in the last decade. Please make more.
And Larian's
please stick to what you're doing.
What strikes me about that is Larian's community focus, and obviously Baldur's Gate 3, has the multiplayer, and D&D in general is a very community focused thing. But if you're talking about video games, what's more community oriented than an MMO? And
exactly.
Yet Activision chose to ignore that aspect and just try to basically, just try to turn it into this minimum viable project. Community be, screw the community, screw the players actually who are actually having, this becomes part of their, I guess in some ways part of their social life.
There's a buddy of Bobby Kotick who made this talk to these high level CEOs where it's like, you don't have to innovate on a game. You watch the market, you see somebody who does an innovation, and then you buy them out. And then you promote it up, you grow it up a little bit, then you sap as much money as you can from it, and then when you're done with it, you just throw it away. You just throw it into the vault, and at some point in the future, you pull it out, you get people to spend money on it as a memory thing. And again, look at what they've done to some of the remakes.
Yep.
And you can see that Bobby Kotick heard this and was just like, wow, this is going to be my business strategy for the next 5 years. And then that's what he did. And the sad thing is that it works most of the time. And that's the problem. So when you see a company and you see Phil from Xbox coming in and saying, no, we want to make the Larian type of games because that's going to grow our ecosystem of games far more than what these guys are doing. And I think they're right. I really do. And I hope they're right because I don't want the asset flip constant garbage that we've been getting. It's one of the main reasons why I spend more money on indie games, supporting indie developers on, from month to month than I do on buying actual video games. Like AAA video games. It's like I bought Starfield, I bought Baldur's Gate, of course, because it's beautiful. I bought For the King, but that is only about half of the cost that I spend sending to developers who are usually 1, 2, 3 people on a team, making a game, trying to get it out, working in a basement somewhere, because that's the kind of stuff, that's where we're going to get that change. And I think that's what we need to focus on, but at the same time, we need to engage whenever a company moves, it's like watching a chess match. Whenever you see somebody move a piece and it's a good move and it's a good thing and they're doing great, you're like, you get up, you cheer. You guys are doing the right thing. And then the person goes, maybe I should do that again. And you're like, yes, maybe I should move this piece here, and this piece is respecting the audience. And one of the things that was at BlizzCon was one of the most commonly said things by the devs was, we want to respect your time. Because up until recently, they didn't respect your time. Bobby never respected your time.
No. They don't mind at all wasting all your time. So you sit down, you've got an hour to play a game, and they spend 30 to 40 minutes of that trying to shovel microtransactions down your throat. Mm-hmm. It's disgusting when they do that. Or it's really in an hour of gameplay, you've really played maybe 10 or 15 minutes worth of game because they've stretched it out and padded it with crap. Anyway, just to end off, because we have been talking for quite a while, and it is exciting to see what's happening or what could potentially happen. And let's reemphasize that this is all potential at this point. We're gonna, regardless of what we say, we're gonna be accused of being, Blizzard shills or whatever. And if you want to think that, fine. But this is all potential. Obviously, now they have to actually sit down and make the changes, do the things, deliver the, above and beyond that minimum viable product, deliver on the things that the community is asking for, and then we'll reevaluate and say, okay, did they succeed? Did they keep their promises, or did they not? Now, just to end off here, what do you think we can reasonably expect to see from some of Blizzard's big IPs, like World of Warcraft, Overwatch? I'm not sure if that's a big IP anymore with the whole Overwatch 2 fiasco. But
right. It's kind of gone that way. So,
but some of the other ones, I
do have some big news. So one of the things that's going to happen is that StarCraft is going to be moved to a different studio. And
Sorry,
some
did
people
you
are
say
going
StarCraft?
StarCraft
Okay.
is moving to a different studio. It's very possible that it'll be under a Blizzard name. It'll be like Blizzard. Let's go with something goofy here. Blizzard Hawaii. Yeah, sure, why not? That's not true. That's
Blizzard Londonian.
Blizzard's IP, StarCraft is nobody who currently works at the studio was really instrumental in that product, aside from obviously some of the Chris Metzen with the writing and a handful of other people. The actual developers who actually made RTSs, none of them work at Blizzard anymore. They all work at another studio who's creating a game that looks quite promising, that basically plays exactly like StarCraft. So some IPs are just going to be moved, and StarCraft is one of them. It's going to go out. It's going to go to a new studio. They're going to have to put together a team for it. They're going to have to design it, get it up and running, get them working on it. Don't expect to see a new StarCraft game for probably 5 to 6 years.
Wouldn't it be funny if they hired that other studio though? The one you just talked about.
That would be very interesting. But no, those guys are at the point now where I think they're probably going to release in a year or two. So I probably even probably at the earliest late next year, or 2025. I think that's probably where they're at with that. But yeah, it's just Blizzard. Microsoft has teams that do RTSs way better than anybody else in the industry right now, because RTSs is kind of a smaller niche genre right now. Mm-hmm. And it's a niche genre because people stopped making new RTSs because they had an analyst come in and tell them, yeah, people don't want RTSs anymore. No, they just wanted good RTSs. Like that's all they wanted. But nobody was making them. So StarCraft is expected to be moved to another studio. The studio that's currently set up in California is probably going to become I think it's going to become just a wholly Warcraft studio, just making Warcraft titles of various types. And then I think they're going to cut off Diablo. I think they're going to send that somewhere else. Could be that they just keep them on the same in the same area. Like it's a pretty big. Blizzard's they have a pretty big piece of property with a lot of office space. But I honestly think that one's going to move out too, as well as Overwatch, because the Overwatch team is very small right now. It would not be hard to relocate them, to have them to bring in some new blood, some new leadership, and then just to recruit, and then to basically plan a big new release at some point in the future. I think that's probably something that might happen with that one. Don't quote me on that, because that's more wishful thinking. The StarCraft one, I have that on good authority. It's not going to be made at that building in California, because there's just no point to try. That it would be easier to start new, fresh, complete, or to send it to an existing team that can really make some good stuff. And I think that's what's going to happen with that.
Makes sense, yeah.
Because right now, WoW is no longer considered the cash cow farming IP, where they farm the people who are playing the game for money. It is now considered Blizzard's flagship product. And it will be growing with new entries over the next 5 to 6 years. We're going to have some major new games coming out with this IP. Hopefully not more like Rumble's. As far as phone games go, Rumble is it's pretty good. It's like you don't have to spend money on it to have fun. You just play, have fun. It's not a big money game. And we're gonna see more things like that. We're probably gonna see a TV show, probably sooner than a lot of people think, because Microsoft wants to get in on this stuff. They realize that they need to get in on this stuff. They realize that if they can charge you Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass, give you Xbox Game Pass, and give you a lineup of television shows to watch. Well, not television shows; it's more like screen shows to watch now, because television is not really a thing. That's a
still
huge
call them
product.
televisions, dude. But anyway, yeah.
So that is
TV
something
shows
that makes more sense for them
on Game Pass. What's an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm. So,
Nice.
and again, it's like this is not something that's going to be announced next year. It's not going to be announced year after that. It's probably going to be a while. So right now they have their World Soul Saga that was announced. That was one of the big changes. Instead of announcing one expansion, they announced 3 in a row. We know what the next 3 expansions are going to be. We know that they're going to have a story that is going to flow from one to the next to the next to the next. Every patch is going to have a significant story update where you are playing with friends or with AIs. They're working on an AI team for dungeons where you can just go in and be like, hey, I don't want to like mess up here and have people hate on me. So can I play it with a bunch of heroes from Azeroth? And their answer to that is yes. We want this to happen this way. It makes sense to do it this way. So yeah. So we're gonna be moving in that direction now. The Blizzard headquarters right now is going to become far more World of Warcraft focus, Warcraft focus, because they're going to be doing multiple Warcraft IPs, multiple Warcraft things, and they're really gonna settle down on that because it's where most of the money is. Diablo might stay localized there, but Overwatch is due for a move, and so is StarCraft, because again, StarCraft is like there's just nobody there to grow that IP. They've all left. They're all doing their own thing. All the people who know how to program that, they're just not there anymore. And it just makes a lot more sense to have them move that off to somewhere else. And you'll probably get a better, more superior product faster if they do that than if they try to spend the next couple of years fixing Blizzard and allowing it to grow properly, cleaning out the trash, and then whilst trying to do that, also trying to grow a new, studio in the same house making StarCraft. That's just going to be messy. Just move it off, start a new thing. That's almost a for sure.
There's definitely some advantages to streamlining and doing some separations, as we've just seen with the whole separation between Blizzard and Activision. So thank you, Saib, for all of the insight on that. Of course, for those of you listening, we want to hear your comments and questions and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. Of course, we want to know what you think about this. We understand the trepidation. I mean, the last few years have taught us to be very skeptical, and we should be. This is, again, we see a lot of potential here, and that's exciting. Some of what's being promised is exciting, but now it all comes down to what can they actually pull off.
Yeah.
Now, as for what we've seen with how Microsoft has handled its studios over the last several years that we've been covering Microsoft and Xbox and their studio acquisition, I'm fairly optimistic, but again, no guarantees. Obviously, no guarantees. But tell us what you think. Are you more interested in World of Warcraft than you were before, or are you excited for some of what's coming? Are you skeptical? Are you completely done with Blizzard? Are there glory days in the past and they can't recover? If that's your opinion, we want to hear all of your thoughts on this. Leave your comments below. And Saib, you got more content coming soon, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, I'm going to be working on some videos. I'm going to be asking the question: should warlocks, shamans, and rogues tank?
We'll leave you to chew on that, and we'll see you in the next one. Talk to you later.
See you.
Before you go, why not check out some of the other entertaining and enriching gaming content we have here at the Triple S League, like Maximum News, our weekly gaming news podcast hosted by Max Darrett. You'll also find comedy, reviews, and lore videos, and the description has links to our other channels, like Scenometry, where I humorously overthink TV and movies.